Our 3D model's done. We have clean topology, good proportions, and you followed my whole how to 3D model anything process. Now it's just sitting there, gray and ready to be textured. This is how to texture anything. This is the same production workflow I use on every asset that comes from my pipeline. This is part of my new series where I cover parts of the 3D artist pipeline in 5 minutes. So with that, let's go. Here's a mistake I made for years. I'd finish a model, jump straight into Substance Painter, and just start painting. And when I'd get all the way to the end, something always seemed off. And it took me a while to figure out what it was. It wasn't skill, it was my process. So here's a fix. It's the same process I run on any one of my assets now. Once I finish my 3D model, I UV map it, I gather real reference, I bake my mesh maps, I start building my materials layer by layer, then texture it with storytelling in mind. So let's run through each one of those steps. First, we got UV mapping. It's the rigging before animation of texturing. Nobody really wants to do it, but if you skip it, everything else downstream breaks. If I could summarize it in one sentence, it's taking your 3D model and converting it into a 2D coordinate space. And I talk about this a lot on my channel. It's one of my most popular videos. Now, once your UVs are laid out, next up is gathering reference. Now, here's the thing. Don't just pull reference from ArtStation. That's someone else's interpretation of a material. It's not the material itself. I bring this up because I see this all the time with my students. They just start pulling other people's projects because they look good. Now, there's nothing wrong with using it for inspiration, but you want to start with the real thing. Start gathering real images of the tools, break down each material, then look at examples of it brand new and compare that to reference you've gathered that has years of use. This is going to specifically show you the wear over time, where the hand touches it, where the dirt builds up, where the edges actually wear down. This is what helps us improve the realism of our model and not give it that uniform, textured look that we typically get from just dragging a pre-made smart material. Now, while building that reference, start thinking about how each detail is going to be its own layer down the pipeline. Here's an example of how I break down each part of the reference into what will eventually be its own layer. We have dirt passes, paint smudges, glue smudges, scratches, grunge, dirt. So we're already planning how our layer stack will be set up before we even get to substance. Now that we've got our reference, it's time to bake. You can self-bake the 3D model itself or run a high poly to low poly process. Either way, what you need is your mesh maps baked. Ambient occlusion, curvature, normal, thickness, position, ID maps. Substance uses that information to drive every mask, every scratch, every bit of wear that will add later. Now we're actually building our materials, and PBR, or physically based rendering, is what makes the whole system work. I love this because you texture once and it holds up whether you're in Substance, Blender, Maya, Unreal, or Unity, or Godot. Now, I use Substance Painter. It's been my go-to since before Adobe bought it. It still holds up fine, aside from the subscription price, but the tool's not the point. You could use Mari, Marmoset, UCU Paint, Mixer, whatever you like to use. The output is what matters. It's going to give us base color, roughness, metallic, normal, height. Those core maps give you nearly all the details that you need to have a fully textured asset. Now finally, let's start building. We're gonna break the materials into layers. We have our base material, which contains all of our material properties. We have our color variation, roughness variation, height, and wear. In my workflow and courses, I love to color code them. I even color code my reference board to match my layer stack. I have blue for color variation, green for roughness, purple for height, orange for global wear. This makes it very easy to know what each layer group is doing. And within a single channel, I usually stack big macro noise with a tighter micro noise layer on top of it. That's the difference between a material that reads as complex and one that just reads as a bunch of random noise. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. Every one of those layers really just has a mask underneath it driving it. A black mask filled with noise, like grunge, clouds, purlin, whatever's got some natural randomness to it, is blended at a low opacity or a different blending mode. You'll see that this is exactly how I get the details in my color pass. Before, it's just one uniform color, but if I toggle it on and off, you'll see this subtle detail of how it goes from a flat material to looking something that is far more believable. Then we apply this to every layer and channel, which could be color, roughness, height. Now, my favorite thing about masks is that you can combine procedural and tileable masks to get the realism you need without having to hand paint everything from scratch. Then, once your main masks are set up, You can then start manually painting in the detail where you need it. You can add a scratch here, a smudge there, dirt building up in specific areas and specific crevices. You're combining the best of both worlds. A procedural approach with hand-painted detail on top. This is what takes your model from looking very fake and uniform to looking believable, which leads us into our last piece, and honestly is the one that sells it. It's storytelling. Every game, film, animation that pulls you into its world is telling a story through every part of the process. So for texturing, here's my rule. You always want to texture an asset like a person just set the asset down on their desk and walked out of the room. And the best place to start is just look around your own room. Look at your own desk, the wear on your tools, props, anything that you have sitting around. It's going to have that natural wear from usage over time. And it's not just human wear and tear. If you're doing a lot of environment work, think about natural weathering too. We have sun bleaching and damage, weather staining, oxidation on metal, rusting on edges. It's not a random dirt layer slapped on top and called detail. That's not detail. That's just uniform noise. So there it is. We model it, UV it, build our reference, bake it, build the materials layer by layer, and then tell a story. And every one of those steps is its own deep topic, which is exactly what I break down inside my game art program, start to finish on a real game asset. Now, I already hear the comments. This video is a high-level overview, but I got follow-ups planned specifically for my YouTube channel that go in deeper on real-time workflows on how to exactly apply what we discussed here today. So if you're not ready to join my game art program yet, no worries. I'm going to have a ton of new content coming to my YouTube channel and to my program. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know which part of the pipeline you want covered next in this series. I'm having a lot of fun with these. See you in the next one. If you want to learn game art the right way and not just follow random tutorials, I built a full game art program that walks you through the entire pipeline from an idea to a finished portfolio piece. It's split into 2 courses. Modeling and UV mapping foundations is the first one, and texturing, rendering, and presentation is the second. Each has over 40 modules, 15 hours of narrated content, exercises, time lapses, project files. And you're not doing it alone. You get access to a private Discord community where you can ask questions and get feedback along the way. If you want real-world production workflows you can use for both studio work and your personal projects, the program is live now. I'll see you there.